Noah drifted through the cold corridors of the abandoned trading station, his boots echoing softly on the metal floors. The station had been silent for years, yet he could feel something alive in its emptiness. Broken lights flickered above, and the hum of distant machinery gave the place a ghostly rhythm. He had come in search of a shortcut to the outer rim, but the moment he opened the airlock, he noticed them. A group of aliens sat huddled near a dying generator, their bodies thin and weak, their eyes hollow. They looked helpless, like shadows of living creatures. Their skin had a pale green hue, stretched tight over sharp bones, and their limbs trembled with hunger. The smell of decay and desperation filled the air. Noah had heard stories of starving aliens, but seeing them up close made a heavy weight press on his chest. He could not ignore them. The aliens watched him warily. They were used to humans being dangerous. Many had been abandoned or chased away in the past. One of them, slightly larger than the others, stepped forward, its voice shaking. "Who are you? Are you here to harm us?" Noah raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm just a traveler," he said softly. "I have food. You don't have to be afraid." The words seemed strange to the aliens. Food had been a memory for them, a time long before the trading routes collapsed. They exchanged glances, uncertain if this human spoke truth or lies. A young alien child, smaller than the rest and with glowing amber eyes, crawled toward him slowly, curiosity outweighing fear. Noah opened his pack and pulled out rations. Simple human food, preserved to last long journeys. The smell was strange to the aliens, yet familiar enough to make their stomachs grumble with need. Noah offered a small piece to the child, who hesitated for a heartbeat before taking it with trembling hands. The reaction was immediate. The child's small body seemed to regain some strength after just a few bites. Eyes widened with amazement. The others approached slowly, cautiously, until they were all gathered around him. Noah continued to hand out his food carefully, making sure no one went without a portion. Hunger was powerful, but trust was fragile. He spoke gently as he worked. "Take what you need. There is enough to share." The aliens did not know how to respond. They had never experienced generosity from humans. Some thought it was a trap, others hoped it was real. Slowly they began to eat, their bodies trembling as nutrients filled them for the first time in weeks. Tears appeared in their eyes, not from sadness but from relief. While they ate, Noah watched the station carefully. Broken doors, dark hallways, and empty observation decks reminded him that help was far away. If he stayed too long, he risked running out of his own supplies. Yet, leaving now would mean abandoning creatures who might not survive another day. The weight of the choice pressed heavily on him, but he could not ignore the silent plea in their eyes. Hours passed, and more aliens arrived, drawn by the smell of food. Each one hesitated at the edge of the room, looking at Noah as if deciding whether he was friend or threat. He smiled and offered small pieces to each new arrival, careful to ration what he had. By the time the dim lights of the station flickered again, he had shared everything he carried. Noah felt exhaustion in his bones, yet a strange warmth filled him as he watched the aliens begin to move more steadily. They shared stories of distant planets, of lost families, of dangers they had faced in the outer rim. None of them mentioned how they had survived the hunger. Perhaps they had thought survival impossible until now. As night fell in the artificial darkness of the station, a soft humming filled the hallways. A small monitor, hidden behind debris, blinked with a faint green light. Noah did not notice it, but one of the aliens did. A thin, wiry creature, older than the rest, pointed at it and whispered to the others, "Look, someone is watching us." Noah turned his attention toward the monitor, curiosity mixing with concern. "Who could it be?" he asked. The older alien shook its head. "I do not know, but this place is not as abandoned as we thought. Perhaps the stories were true. Humans rarely help for free." Noah knelt beside the creature and explained, "I'm not here for fame or reward. I have little myself, but I can share it." Hunger does not need to decide who lives or dies. The aliens were silent for a long moment, absorbing the weight of his words. Hope had been a stranger in their lives for weeks, and yet here it was, fragile but growing. They began to organize themselves, moving toward corners to rest, finding spots near the remaining warmth of the generator. Even the child, small and trembling, found a place to sleep, clutching a bit of food still in hand. Noah finally allowed himself to sit, leaning against a wall. His own body screamed with exhaustion, but his mind was alert. He knew that danger could come at any moment. The outer rim was not safe, and any act of kindness could attract unwanted attention. Yet he also knew that if he left now, none of these creatures would survive until the next supply ship, if one ever came. Hours passed in silence. Only the hum of the generator and the distant echo of footfalls reminded him that the station had not completely died. Outside, stars shone coldly in the black sky, a reminder that the universe was vast and indifferent. Yet inside, a small group of aliens had found warmth and hope, all because one human had chosen to care. Noah's eyes drifted shut for a brief rest, knowing he must remain alert. The aliens slept uneasily, but their bodies no longer shook with weakness. He could feel the change. Even a little food could give life a chance. Before sleep claimed him entirely, Noah noticed a shadow in the hallway, flickering in the light of the generator. He tensed, instinctively reaching for a tool that could serve as a weapon if needed. The shadow did not move closer, yet its presence reminded him that the universe rarely allowed miracles to go unnoticed. Perhaps someone or something had already seen his actions. He wondered if help would come, or if the station's silence would return once he was gone. Yet he refused to let fear dictate his choices. One act of sharing could ripple farther than anyone could imagine. The alien group stirred in their sleep, murmuring softly, a language Noah could not understand but recognized as relief. By the time the artificial sun began its dim cycle, the station was alive with small sounds of recovery. One of the aliens, stronger than the rest, approached Noah cautiously. "You have given us life today," the creature said simply. "We will not forget." Noah smiled, though his energy was near its limit. "You do not need to. Survive, and the story will carry itself." He had no idea that his simple act of kindness would reach far beyond the station's walls. Somewhere, beyond the dark expanse of space, eyes were watching. Observers who had never imagined a human would risk so much for creatures so different from themselves. And perhaps they would remember. For now, Noah and the aliens rested. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Food was still limited and dangers beyond the station still loomed. But for the first time in weeks, the aliens felt something they had almost forgotten: hope. And Noah understood a truth that would guide his actions in the days ahead. In a universe so vast and uncaring, the choice to help was sometimes the most powerful force of all. The stars outside continued to shine, indifferent and cold, yet inside the station, a tiny light of life had begun to burn. It was fragile, yes, but real. And sometimes, fragile lights became the brightest beacons in the dark. Noah woke to the soft hum of the station, his body aching from the long night. The aliens had shifted during their sleep, some closer to the generator, some near the walls, but all seemed a little stronger than before. He stretched carefully, trying not to wake anyone, and checked the small supplies he had left. Only a few portions remained, just enough for one more careful distribution. Outside the windows, the stars blinked coldly, a reminder that the universe did not notice individual lives. Yet inside, a fragile warmth lingered, the result of sharing and trust. Noah moved quietly, offering the remaining food to those who were still weak. Some hesitated at first, still unsure if it was truly safe, but hunger eventually overcame fear. Each bite brought color back to their faces, a small miracle that no one on the station had expected. As the aliens ate, a low murmur of conversation began. They spoke in a language Noah could not understand, but he could sense curiosity and wonder in their voices. They asked about him, about humans, and about why he had risked so much to help them. Noah smiled softly. "I have little, but I will share it. Life is more than just surviving alone," he said. The words seemed strange to them, yet something in his calm tone made them listen. A thin, wiry alien, older than the others, approached him cautiously. Its eyes reflected both fear and hope. "Why do you help us?" it asked. "No human has ever stayed with those in need before." Noah shrugged. "I do not seek reward. I only know what it feels like to need help and find none. If I can prevent suffering, I try to do so." The older alien studied him, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps this is what we have needed all along. Perhaps we have been forgotten, but not all are cruel." As the day passed, the aliens grew stronger. Some ventured into nearby rooms, exploring the station, while others remained near the generator, absorbing its heat and energy. Noah realized that even a little food could ignite hope, and hope could give life a chance. For the first time in weeks, the station felt alive. Noah had been rationing carefully, but now he faced a difficult decision. His remaining food would not last long, and the aliens depended on him. He had to find a way to keep them alive until more help arrived, but he did not know if the station still had supplies hidden somewhere. He began searching cautiously, moving through dark corridors and abandoned storage rooms. In one corner of the station, he discovered a small cache of preserved food containers, left behind by traders long gone. They were sealed tightly, but with effort he managed to open a few. It was not enough to feed everyone for long, but it would give them a little more time. Noah gathered the food and returned to the aliens, who watched him with growing trust. He handed out the new supplies carefully, ensuring that each received enough to survive another day. The aliens ate slowly, savoring each bite as if it were a treasure. Their strength returned gradually, and with strength came energy, and with energy came movement. They began helping each other, sharing tasks and tending to the weak. Noah watched, amazed at how quickly cooperation could form when trust existed. But as the day turned to night, an uneasy tension filled the station. Noah sensed it first in the quiet shadows of the hallways. Something was approaching, though he could not see it yet. The aliens noticed too, whispering nervously to one another. The wiry elder spoke urgently, his voice low. "Be ready, not all who watch are friends. Danger comes to those who appear weak." Noah's heart sank. He had hoped their brief moment of peace would last, but the universe rarely allowed miracles to remain unnoticed. He gathered the aliens near the generator, forming a small circle of protection. "Do not panic," he said. "We will face whatever comes together. Stand close, stay calm, and trust that we can survive." The shadow grew closer, a faint hum of engines in the distance. Noah could not see the shape clearly, but he knew it was a patrol of some kind, likely from a nearby trade authority. They had strict rules. No starving aliens should be left alive. The station's forgotten inhabitants would be removed, or worse. He glanced at the aliens, their eyes wide with fear, and felt a surge of determination. "This is not the end," he said. "We are stronger together than they expect." As the patrol drew near, the aliens began moving instinctively, organizing themselves based on his guidance. He taught them simple defensive maneuvers, how to block passages and create noise to confuse intruders. The smallest aliens, the children, were kept in the center, safe from harm. Noah's calm voice became a shield, his instructions a lifeline. The patrol arrived at the airlock, weapons ready. They expected an easy boarding, but the station greeted them with unexpected resistance. Lights flickered, shadows moved unpredictably, and a human stood at the center, guiding a group of aliens who appeared stronger than their size suggested. Noah met the first officer's gaze, unwavering. "I will not allow you to harm them," he said simply. "Leave this station, or we face consequences you do not understand." The patrol hesitated. They had never seen a human risk so much for creatures they considered insignificant. The situation became tense, each second stretching into an eternity. The aliens behind Noah, though still recovering, mirrored his resolve. For the first time, they were not afraid. They had someone who believed in them, and that belief had given them courage. Noah's eyes scanned the hallways, noting where shadows moved and where the intruders could strike. He whispered instructions to the aliens, directing them to block entrances and create obstacles. Small, seemingly harmless creatures became shields, their actions amplified by teamwork. The patrol advanced cautiously, unsure of what they faced. Then, unexpectedly, a faint signal appeared on one of the station monitors. Someone, somewhere beyond the system, had noticed the situation. The patrol glanced at it nervously. The signal could not be ignored. Observers were now watching, and the implications were unclear. No one knew that the universe was no longer indifferent to this small station. Hours passed as the standoff continued. Noah distributed his last portions of food to those who were still weak, knowing that the patrol would soon leave if nothing escalated. He moved among the aliens, whispering encouragement and reassurance. "We are alive because we care," he said. "We survive because we act together." The patrol commander, sensing the eyes of others watching, finally signaled a retreat. "This is not over," he warned, "but we will not intervene today." The engines hummed and the patrol ships disappeared into the stars, leaving the station in uneasy silence. The aliens exhaled, some collapsing in relief, others hugging one another. Noah sat near the generator, exhausted, but a quiet smile touched his lips. They had survived the immediate danger, and for now, hope remained alive. The older alien approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You are not like the others," it said simply. "You give life when all around are indifferent. We will not forget this day." Noah shook his head softly. "You do not need to remember me. Just remember what it feels like to be helped and help others when you can. That is the true power of survival." As the station settled into uneasy calm, Noah realized the truth of his own words. The aliens had learned more than how to eat or survive. They had learned trust, cooperation, and hope. These things were as important as food, perhaps more. The night passed slowly. Shadows shifted in the halls, but no further threats emerged. Noah and the aliens rested, gathering strength for the days ahead. Outside, stars continued to shine coldly, yet inside the station, a small light of life burned brighter. By morning, the aliens were moving with more confidence, exploring the station and sharing their thoughts with one another. Noah continued to teach them simple routines: how to manage supplies, how to support each other, and how to remain calm under pressure. Every act of cooperation strengthened their bonds, and somewhere, beyond the station and the distant stars, eyes continued to watch. Observers who had never expected humans to show such care were paying attention. Noah had started a chain reaction that would extend farther than he could imagine. The aliens whispered among themselves, sharing stories of the human who gave them life. Their voices were soft, but their message was clear. Survival was possible, even against overwhelming odds. Hope, they realized, could be as strong a weapon as any ship or any patrol. Noah leaned back against the wall, exhaustion pressing down on him. Yet his mind remained alert, knowing that new challenges would come. Hunger might return, dangers might approach, but for now they had survived. Together, they had changed the course of their lives. And in that moment, in the quiet hum of the station, Noah understood something profound. Life could be fragile, yet even the smallest acts of kindness could create ripples that reached across the stars. The aliens would live, not because of luck, but because someone chose to care when it mattered most. The morning light from the station's artificial sun barely penetrated the dim halls, yet it was enough to reveal movement. The aliens, though still recovering, were no longer the trembling shadows Noah had first encountered. Their limbs moved with cautious strength, and their eyes, once dull with despair, now held a spark of determination. Noah observed them quietly, pride and worry mixed in his gaze. They had survived the patrol's first visit, but he knew that it was only the beginning. He called the older alien forward, the wiry creature who had spoken to him before. "We must prepare," Noah said. "We cannot rely on chance. If the patrol returns, we must be ready to protect ourselves. We also need to organize our food and energy to last until help comes." The alien nodded, understanding without hesitation. It began speaking to the others, relaying Noah's instructions. The small group split into teams. Some checked the station's remaining rooms for hidden supplies. Others maintained the generator and repaired minor damage. The children stayed near the center, watched over by those stronger, while Noah moved among them, giving advice and encouragement. As they worked, a quiet tension hung over the station. Every creak of metal, every flicker of the lights made the group pause. Noah remained calm, a steady presence in the chaos. "Fear is natural," he told them, "but we cannot let it control our actions. We act carefully, we act together, and we survive." Hours passed with little disturbance, and the aliens began to adapt to life on the station again. They shared memories of their planets, of foods that were no longer available, of families separated by the collapse of trade. Each story reminded Noah of the fragility of life in this part of the galaxy. He listened patiently, knowing that empathy could strengthen them as much as food or strategy could. Suddenly, a faint vibration ran through the station. Noah stiffened. The older alien noticed it too and whispered urgently, "They are coming again. The patrol is near." "We must act fast." Noah's mind raced. The patrol had retreated before, but they would not leave indefinitely. They would return more prepared and determined. He gathered the aliens and explained the plan. "We do not have weapons," he said, "but we have knowledge and courage. We can use the station itself to protect us, block passages, create obstacles, and stay out of sight when necessary. Most importantly, do not panic." The aliens moved quickly, following his instructions. They pulled crates and broken machinery to block hallways, placed loose cables across corridors to create noise, and positioned themselves strategically near the generator. Even the smallest aliens understood their roles. Each action was deliberate, a lesson in survival and trust. As the patrol ship's engines hummed closer, Noah led a small group to the observation deck. From there, he could see the patrol vessel approaching the station. It glided silently through space, sleek and imposing, its hull reflecting the distant stars. Noah knew that confrontation was inevitable, but he refused to let fear dominate him. He drew a deep breath and returned to the aliens. The patrol boarded swiftly, expecting minimal resistance. They were armed, confident, and ready to remove the problem of starving aliens from the station. Yet when they entered, they found more than they anticipated. Shadows shifted, corridors were blocked, and a human stood calmly at the center of a small group of aliens who now seemed alert and coordinated. Noah stepped forward. "I will not allow you to harm them," he said firmly. His voice echoed in the metal halls. "Leave this station, or face consequences you do not understand." The patrol officers exchanged uneasy glances. They had encountered humans before, but never one willing to risk so much for a group of creatures considered insignificant. The presence of the aliens, alert and organized, added to the confusion. Noah had turned vulnerability into strength through guidance and courage. The standoff continued, minutes stretching into tense hours. Noah moved quietly among the aliens, whispering instructions, ensuring that each knew their role. He reminded them to stay calm, to watch each other's backs, and to use the station's layout to their advantage. The aliens followed his guidance, forming a silent but effective defense. During the tense waiting, a signal appeared on the station monitors, faint but undeniable. Observers beyond the system were watching. Noah's actions and the courage of the aliens were being recorded. The patrol noticed it too, their confidence beginning to waver. For the first time, the balance of power shifted. The station was no longer just a place to be cleared. It had become a story, and stories had consequences in the wider galaxy. Noah seized the moment. "They are watching," he said to the aliens. "We must stand together. We cannot show fear. Courage is our weapon." The aliens tightened their formation, their bodies no longer trembling. Even those who had been weakest now moved with purpose. Crates and cables became barricades, the narrow hallways became channels of control, and Noah's calm presence unified them. The patrol advanced cautiously, unsure of what they faced. Hours passed with no attack, the tension unbearable. The aliens whispered among themselves, encouraged by Noah's leadership. They were no longer just survivors, they were participants in their own destiny. Each action, each decision reinforced their confidence. Noah's guidance had transformed them from helpless creatures into beings capable of standing together against a powerful force. Finally, the patrol commander spoke. His voice was cautious, carrying the weight of uncertainty. "We will retreat for now. Observers are present and interference could be dangerous, but this is not over." The engines hummed, and the patrol ship slowly departed, leaving the station in uneasy calm. Relief washed over the aliens. Some collapsed in exhaustion, others embraced each other, grateful for survival. Noah leaned against the wall, his body aching but his mind alert. They had survived the immediate threat, but he knew that the galaxy's attention brought new responsibilities and potential dangers. The older alien approached him, a hand on his shoulder. "You have done more than feed us," it said quietly. "You have shown us how to be strong together. We will remember this day always." Noah shook his head softly. "Remember, not me. Remember what it feels like to care for one another. That is how survival becomes more than mere luck. That is how life continues." As the station returned to a fragile calm, the aliens began to organize themselves further. They checked remaining supplies, repaired damaged areas, and shared small tasks to strengthen their community. Noah continued to teach, reinforcing lessons about cooperation, patience, and courage. The day passed with small victories. The aliens explored parts of the station they had never seen, finding forgotten storage rooms and repairing minor equipment. Children played quietly under the watchful eyes of adults, and even the older and weakest aliens contributed in small but meaningful ways. Hope, fragile yet persistent, grew stronger. Noah remained vigilant. He knew that the patrol's retreat was temporary and that danger could return at any moment. Yet he also recognized the growth within the alien group. They were no longer shadows of life. They had become actors in their own survival. Every action, every shared task reinforced their resilience. As night fell, Noah and the aliens gathered near the generator. They shared stories of distant worlds, of foods long lost, and of families separated by tragedy. These stories, though tinged with sadness, created bonds and trust. The simple act of listening became as powerful as any weapon. Outside, stars continued their indifferent journey, but inside the station, life and courage burned brightly. Noah realized that this small group, once hopeless and starving, had learned the value of unity and trust. And in that moment, he understood something profound. Even in a universe so vast and indifferent, courage and care could create ripples that reached farther than anyone could imagine. By morning, the station had transformed subtly but significantly. Aliens moved with confidence, worked together, and shared responsibilities. Noah's guidance had turned despair into hope. He knew that the next challenge would come, that the patrol might return stronger, and that survival would demand constant vigilance. Yet he also knew that together, they had changed the odds. The aliens had discovered that fear could be met with courage, weakness could be met with strength, and hunger could be met with hope. And Noah understood that the act of sharing, the act of caring, could create power greater than any weapon. For the first time in weeks, the station felt alive. Shadows moved with purpose, voices carried stories of resilience, and small lights burned in the dim halls. The aliens had learned that life could be reclaimed, even in the most hopeless circumstances, and Noah had become more than a human who shared food. He had become a symbol of hope in a dark and uncaring universe. The station was quiet, but not for long. Noah had spent the night walking among the aliens, checking on the weak, repairing the generator, and making sure everyone had a small ration of food. They were stronger now, more coordinated, but he knew that this fragile peace could be broken at any moment. He had taught them how to work together, but he could not teach them everything. The universe had its own rules, and danger was always patient. As morning light filtered through the dusty observation windows, a distant hum grew louder. Noah paused, listening carefully. The sound was familiar, another patrol ship. Not the one that had come before, but a larger vessel, faster and armed with more precision. The aliens sensed it too. They gathered around Noah, fear shadowing their eyes for the first time in days. He knelt to meet their gaze. "Stay calm," he said firmly. "We have prepared. We have each other. That is our strength." The older alien nodded, understanding that words alone could not protect them, but that courage was a choice. The smaller aliens clung to one another, some whispering prayers, others just staring silently, trying to believe in Noah's confidence. Noah moved quickly. He directed the aliens to their positions. The strongest formed barriers at critical junctions of the station, using crates and debris to create obstacles. The smallest, the children and the weaker aliens, were hidden near the generator room, shielded from sight. Noah himself positioned near the main airlock, ready to confront whatever came through first. The patrol ship's engines grew louder, echoing through the metal halls. A beam of light scanned the station as the vessel approached. Noah felt his pulse quicken but forced himself to remain calm. Fear was natural, but panic would ruin all the preparation. He reminded the aliens quietly, "Do not let them see fear. Stand together. Show them we are not helpless." The airlock hissed open and the first officers stepped inside, weapons ready. They expected compliance, a simple removal of the starving aliens. What they found instead was surprising. Shadows moved unpredictably, barricades forced them to slow their advance, and Noah stood calmly at the center of the room, his eyes unwavering. The aliens behind him were no longer trembling. Some held makeshift tools, others blocked narrow corridors, but all carried an unspoken determination. Noah raised his voice. "Leave this station immediately. You will not harm these beings. Any attack will not succeed." The patrol officers exchanged uncertain glances. They had trained for conflict, for situations where they were in control, but this was different. Humans were rarely seen risking themselves for creatures considered insignificant, and now the aliens were standing with him, ready to act in coordination. A tense silence followed. Every second stretched as the patrol evaluated the situation. Noah took a careful step forward, signaling the aliens to remain alert but still. "We do not wish to fight," he said, "but we will protect ourselves, and the universe is watching." The mention of observation caused a subtle change in the patrol's behavior. They glanced at the station monitors, noticing faint signals transmitting outward. Somewhere, eyes beyond the system were now aware of the situation. Noah's actions, the aliens' courage, were being broadcast, and the implications were clear. Any aggressive move would be seen, and consequences could reach far beyond this station. Noah whispered to the older alien, "Stay calm. Keep everyone focused. Fear is the weapon they expect us to feel. We do not give them that." The aliens followed the instructions carefully. They moved with purpose, blocking hallways, creating noise to confuse intruders, and keeping the children safe. Even the smallest aliens who had been weakest before now acted with quiet courage. They had learned from Noah that strength was not always physical, it came from unity and trust. Minutes stretched. The patrol commander finally spoke, his voice cautious, almost reluctant. "We will retreat for now. Observers are present and any aggressive action will be seen, but this is not over. You will be watched." Engines hummed as the patrol ship departed, leaving the station in tense silence. The aliens exhaled collectively, relief washing over them. Some collapsed near the generator, exhausted but alive. Others hugged each other, tears of gratitude and disbelief in their eyes. Noah leaned against a wall, fatigue pressing on him, but his mind remained alert. They had survived the immediate threat, but the galaxy's attention now brought a different kind of challenge. The older alien approached him. "You have given more than life," it said softly. "You have shown us how to act with courage. We will not forget this day." Noah shook his head. "Do not remember me. Remember what it feels like to care for one another. That is the true strength of survival. That is how life continues." The aliens began organizing themselves further, checking supplies, repairing minor damage, and exploring unused corridors. They shared tasks, learned routines, and supported each other. Noah continued to guide them, reinforcing lessons about patience, cooperation, and courage. The day passed with small successes. Aliens discovered hidden storage rooms, repaired broken equipment, and shared food efficiently. Children played quietly under adult supervision, and even the older, weaker aliens contributed where possible. Hope, fragile but persistent, grew stronger with each passing hour. Noah remained vigilant. He knew that the patrol's return was only a matter of time and that new dangers could appear without warning. Yet he also saw the growth within the group. They had transformed from helpless beings into a coordinated, resilient community. Every decision, every shared effort strengthened their unity. By evening, the station was alive with subtle activity. Aliens moved with confidence, voices carried stories of distant worlds, and small lights glowed in previously darkened halls. Noah had taught them more than survival. He had shown them that hope and courage could be as powerful as any weapon. Night fell slowly. The aliens gathered near the generator once more. They shared memories, told stories of lost foods and faraway planets, and even whispered tales of past hardships. These stories, tinged with sadness, bonded them further. Listening became an act of care, as important as sharing food or defending passages. Noah watched quietly, understanding that the growth of the aliens was more than physical recovery. They were learning trust, courage, and cooperation, the qualities that allowed life to survive in even the harshest conditions. Every small act, every shared task reinforced their resilience. Outside, stars continued to shine indifferently, a reminder of the vast and uncaring universe. But inside the station, life burned brightly. Shadows moved with purpose, whispers carried hope, and small lights marked the progress of creatures once forgotten. The aliens had discovered that strength could emerge from unity, that fear could be replaced with courage, and that survival required more than food, it required trust. Noah realized that the patrol's retreat had not ended the challenge, but it had given them something valuable: time. Time to grow stronger, to learn, and to prepare for whatever might come next. The aliens had discovered their own power, and Noah understood that this power, born of cooperation and care, could change their future in ways even he could not predict. By morning, the station had transformed subtly but significantly. Aliens moved confidently, managed resources wisely, and carried themselves with dignity. Noah's guidance had changed despair into hope, fear into courage. The next challenge would come, certainly, but the group was no longer helpless. They had learned to act together, and that knowledge was their greatest advantage. And as Noah watched them, he felt a quiet certainty. Even in a galaxy so vast and indifferent, The actions of one caring human could create ripples that changed lives. Courage, compassion, and unity had become a force stronger than any patrol, stronger than hunger, and stronger than fear. For the first time in weeks, the station felt alive in a way it had never been before. Shadows moved with purpose. Voices told stories of resilience, and life, fragile but determined, thrived once more. Noah had not only saved them from hunger, he had taught them the power of hope, courage, and trust, a lesson that would echo far beyond the cold, indifferent stars. The station was calm for a brief moment, but Noah knew it would not last. The aliens had grown stronger, more coordinated, and their trust in him had deepened, yet the galaxy was vast and unpredictable. The patrol that had once threatened them could return, and other dangers might emerge from the shadows of space. Noah understood that their survival depended not only on food or shelter, but on courage, unity, and vigilance. Morning light filtered through the observation windows, reflecting off the metal floors. The aliens were awake and moving with purpose. They had formed small groups, each responsible for tasks around the station. Some repaired broken doors, others scavenged for hidden supplies, while a few prepared additional rations from the remaining human food. Children and the weakest aliens stayed near the generator, safe and warm, yet their eyes held curiosity, and some were beginning to explore small areas under careful supervision. Noah walked among them, offering quiet encouragement. "Remember, we are stronger together," he said. "Every task you do helps all of us. Courage and care will keep us alive." The aliens nodded, repeating the words to themselves. They had learned that survival required more than strength. It required trust and shared effort. A distant vibration traveled through the station. Noah froze, instinctively listening. It was different this time, not the familiar hum of a patrol ship, but a softer, irregular sound. Something approached, something unknown. He motioned for the aliens to remain calm. "We do not know what it is," he whispered, "but we face it together." The station's communication monitors flickered to life, and a faint signal appeared. It was a fleet of independent ships, drawn by the earlier transmissions that Noah's actions had unintentionally broadcast. Medical vessels, supply freighters, and traders from nearby systems were approaching. They had seen the bravery of a single human risking his life to save a starving alien community, and the story had traveled faster than Noah could imagine. The aliens stared in awe as the distant ships became visible through the observation windows. They had never seen help arrive from beyond their isolated section of space. For the first time in weeks, fear gave way to hope, and hope was powerful. Noah smiled quietly, understanding that survival was no longer a lonely struggle. Allies were coming, drawn by courage and compassion, but the patrol had not disappeared entirely. Reports indicated that they were observing from a distance, unwilling to intervene now but watching carefully. Noah knew their presence could complicate matters. Any misstep might provoke them, and the aliens, despite their newfound strength, were still vulnerable. He called them together. "We have help coming," he said, "but we must remain ready. Courage is not absence of fear, it is acting despite it. Stand strong, stay alert, and trust each other." As the first aid ships docked, medical teams and supply crews hurried into the station. Food, water, and medicines were distributed quickly. Aliens who had been frail and weak began to eat, drink, and recover under careful supervision. Some wept openly, overwhelmed by relief. Noah worked alongside them, guiding distribution and offering reassurance. The fleet's arrival also brought attention to the patrol, who now faced scrutiny from distant systems. Orders came to retreat, to avoid escalation in a situation that was being monitored closely. The patrol ships withdrew, leaving the station under protection of the arriving fleet. For the first time, the aliens were safe from immediate threat, and they could begin to rebuild their lives. Noah finally allowed himself to rest. His body ached from days of exhaustion, yet a sense of accomplishment and relief filled him. He watched the aliens move with confidence, helping each other, sharing stories and learning from the experience. They were no longer helpless. They had become a community, resilient and united, strengthened by the trials they had endured. The older alien approached Noah, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have given us more than food or safety," it said. "You have given us courage, trust, and hope. We will never forget this day." Noah shook his head gently. "You do not need to remember me. Remember the lessons we have learned together. Share them with others. Help those in need whenever you can. That is how life continues and how survival becomes more than mere existence." Days passed as the station recovered. Supplies arrived steadily, and medical teams treated the weakest aliens, restoring their health. Children played freely under watchful eyes, and the adults worked to organize their community. Noah continued to guide them, but gradually he allowed them to take charge. The lessons had been learned, and it was time for them to act independently. A sense of normalcy returned, though it was fragile. The aliens explored areas of the station that had long been abandoned, finding forgotten storage rooms, repairing broken systems, and even experimenting with human tools and technology. They were learning to survive not just through dependence on Noah, but through cooperation, ingenuity, and determination. One evening, as the artificial sun dimmed, the aliens gathered near the generator, sharing stories and laughter. Noah watched them quietly, realizing that hope had taken root. What had once been a desperate, starving group was now thriving, filled with strength, knowledge, and unity. The small light of survival had become a beacon of life. A signal arrived on the station monitors, this time from distant colonies. Observers had heard of the human who shared his food and stood with the aliens against danger. Messages of admiration and offers of assistance poured in. Noah realized that a single act of kindness could ripple across the galaxy, inspiring others to act with courage and compassion. The aliens began teaching each other what they had learned from Noah. They shared strategies for survival, methods to ration food, and ways to protect themselves from danger. They told stories of the human who had risked everything, not to glorify him, but to remind themselves of what care and courage could achieve. Noah stood at the observation window, looking out at the fleet of ships that had arrived. The stars seemed less cold now, less indifferent. He understood that the universe was vast and harsh, but it was also full of beings capable of kindness, courage, and change. A single choice to act with compassion could alter countless lives. Weeks passed, and the station transformed completely. Aliens who had been frail and starving now walked with strength, their eyes bright with hope. They shared their food, taught each other skills, and began building a community that could survive without constant human guidance. Noah had given them more than life. He had given them the tools to shape their own destiny. One morning, as he prepared to leave the station, the older alien approached him once more. "Your time here has ended," it said softly, "but your actions will remain with us forever. You have shown that even one being can change the lives of many." Noah smiled, feeling the weight of exhaustion and accomplishment. "Remember what you have learned," he said. "Carry it forward. Be brave, be kind, and never forget that even the smallest act of care can change everything." He boarded his ship and looked back at the station. The aliens were waving, some crying, some laughing, all alive and thriving. Noah felt a warmth in his chest. He had come as a traveler, seeking a path through the stars, but he was leaving knowing he had made a difference. As his ship lifted off, the station grew smaller in the distance. But the story of that place, of the starving aliens who had found hope through one human's courage, began to spread. Across systems, beings talked of the day when hunger and despair were overcome, not through force, but through care. Noah's simple act of sharing food had become a symbol, a reminder that compassion and courage were powerful tools in any galaxy. Years later, the aliens taught their children about the human who had shared his food, guided them through danger, and showed them the strength of unity. They told stories not of war or conquest, but of hope, trust, and kindness. The station, once silent and abandoned, became a center of life and learning. Noah's lesson had endured far beyond his presence, inspiring generations to act with courage and care. Noah, traveling alone through distant stars, thought of them sometimes. He knew that the galaxy was vast and full of challenges, yet he also understood that hope could spread faster than any weapon, stronger than any threat, and more lasting than any hardship. The aliens had survived, and they had learned a truth that would never fade. Life is strongest when we care for one another. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the story of a human who shared his food, who stood with the helpless, who showed courage when fear was strongest, continued to ripple. The universe was indifferent, but kindness, bravery, and hope had left a mark that could never be erased. Noah smiled quietly, knowing that the smallest act of care could echo across the stars, changing lives in ways no one could predict. The aliens flourished, the station thrived, and the galaxy remembered a lesson simple yet profound. Even in the darkest and coldest corners, life could shine when one being chose to care. And that choice, Noah realized, was the true power of survival. The starving aliens looked hopeless, until a human shared his food. Best HFY sci-fi story.